the
This
case at all.
conference will now be recorded.
Although we do increase some of the usage, the taxes that we collect outweigh any services that we use. And so I think that's real important to understand. So we're not suggesting that we're going to be using more services of the town. We may be doing that, but we will certainly be getting more tax revenue, which will outweigh the cost of any additional services that are used. I think that's real important because that's one of the things I've heard people use as a reason not to do that.
So are we discussing a certain particular plan? Or are we discussing the amendment? And is it our amendment or is it a petitioned amendment? Because the notice for the meeting is for us to work on our amendments.
But we've
Not,
already worked on the one we decided at our
I'm
last
just
meeting.
saying that the notice for the meeting
Yeah.
is not to work on a petition warrant article. It is for working on our zoning amendments that we're proposing.
Okay.
So I just, we've talked about a lot and I read through it and a lot of work went into it, but we're here for our stuff.
Can I just, it seems like you're questioning the agenda, that you think the agenda was improper, but
No.
you are only able to work on your own proposed zoning amendments. You can't work on, there's no work to be done on this. This has been submitted and is a final document. However, I understood the purpose of this meeting was to work on a mixed use ordinance if you think you need to do one
If we wish to do.
in response to this going forward, so that you're not, either if this passes, then you're not left with nothing, or to decide whether you actually need to write anything. So I think you need to understand what's being put forward to know what you need to draft or not draft in a mixed use district. I thought that was the purpose. So yeah, it is to work on your amendment, but you need to understand what is being proposed in case it passes that you'll need to respond to. That's how I saw this meeting.
The other comment that I want to make for clarification is that there are members of the planning board who signed the petition warrant article. And I understand there was some questioning about that. As taxpayers, we have a right to sign any petition warrant article. I personally signed it, and I signed it not because I approve or disapprove of the amendment. I signed it so that it can be given to the voters to make a decision if we decide not to come through with anything, which will be something we'll talk about tonight. Okay? That's the reason I signed it, not because I'm for or against it. But I'd like to start by reading the first few pages of the master plan. I think it's real important that this board understand that. We've talked about it a lot to make sure that there's nothing we're doing that is in any way, shape, form, or fashion against the master plan.
May I comment first? So the board does not have to recommend or disrecommend this petition.
We do.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, but we don't recommend or not recommend anything till after the public hearing, but it's subject to change, okay?
Mhm.
All right. I'm ready. Here.
Ready?
Mhm.
Town of Tilton Master Plan. Vision statement. For more than, I'll start over. For more than a decade and a half, Tilton experienced rapid economic growth in the vicinity of the Exit 20 corridor. The primary goal of town stewards during this period was to guide this event and the resulting increased valuation to stabilize the tax base and offset rising costs. The secondary and converse goal was to protect rural areas and agricultural zones from intense residential development. Though largely successful, these goals did not address many fundamental needs of our citizens, needs such as modern recreational facilities, preservation of green corridors, and the acquisition of important watershed areas and protection of the town's drinking water supplies. A vision for the future of Tilton as a thriving community must include positive improvements in the following areas. 1. Improving the quality of life for citizens through community and safety improvements. 2. actively working to protect the natural resources that buffer the community from the development at exit 20. 3, thoughtfully planning for future capital needs of the community so that infrastructure keeps pace with growing trends. A, quality of life. The village area of our community is an important asset, and a concentrated effort should be made to restore the historic character of the area and support its continued economic revitalization. The town needs to foster an appreciation of historic preservation as a vital aspect of the community's character. One way to do this is to develop and implement zoning and site plan regulations that preserve and protect the historic character of Tilton. Areas of particular concern in the downtown district are safe passage for pedestrians, adequate parking, shopper amenities such as public restrooms and water fountains, public transportation, and the continued revitalization of the downtown buildings in general. Tilton officials should identify any grant funding opportunities that could be used by the town to support historic preservation efforts. A parking ordinance for the downtown was created, which gives the business owners and employees a place to park so that the main street of the town is left open for public shoppers. The town should continue to take advantage of any property that would become available in order to create more parking. A significant level of public interest has been expressed for the development of recreational facilities aimed at all age groups. These should include such facilities as a town beach or public swimming pool, boating and fishing facilities, and parks and athletic fields. The town should proactively work to create public access for outdoor recreational activities and public access to streams, lakes, and ponds in the community. In 2009, a dream of what could be took on a life of its own, and volunteers worked tirelessly to bring the senior center into reality. Many donations, grants, and hard work paid off as the senior center had its grand opening in May of 2012. This was an excellent use of the old Grange building. Efforts should continue for fundraisers in order to assure a long life to the center for the benefit of our seniors. B, natural resources. The creation, preservation, and enhancement of traditional neighborhoods in rural areas are pivotal components in the successful maturation of our community. Neighborhoods are the basic structural ingredient which define and characterize the cultural, historical, and natural qualities of Tilton, while rural areas provide a pleasant and tranquil transition from areas of urban expansion and congestion. Tilton will retain its rural character and charm by increasing the amount of protected lands through land purchases and conservation easements, embracing the use of the cluster housing concept, retaining minimum lot size, and requiring developers to create larger natural buffers. Due to the growth over the last decade, Tilton must scrutinize future residential and commercial complexes for their potential impact on the quality of life and environmentally sensitive areas of the community. Lands of significant natural value, such as aquifers, areas with slopes of 15% or more, and areas identified as significant wildlife habitats or corridors, should all be subjected to stringent environmental review and potential impact studies prior to subdivision and/or site plan approval. The importance of future development patterns cannot be overstated. Therefore, it is imperative that the planning board review and update local regulations and add those that will be needed, such as steep slopes and open space and cluster development. Although the town has a cluster development ordinance, it should be reviewed and adjusted to fit current and future needs of the town. These regulations can help to guide our future planning board members with the creation of new growth. In 2007, the town adopted a program that marked the completion of several years of hard work by volunteers from Belmont, Northfield, and Tilton. The Tri-Town Aquifer Project Best Management Practices Guidebook was officially adopted by the planning board. This guidebook represented years of work to help guide our towns in protecting the quality and quantity of our drinking water resources. Tilton should employ the practices in this guidebook to protect the aquifer resources. As a result of this best management practices guidebook, the town did adopt aquifer protection regulations. The town should continue to support and promote educational opportunities to help raise awareness of water quality issues in Tilton. Additionally, Tilton should work with landowners to develop lands located near or on aquifers with safety nets in place for the prevention of contamination. These aquifers represent the town's future drinking water supplies. It is our responsibility to ensure their protection for future generations. The town should consider amending the subdivision regulations so new subdivisions would be required to have a dry hydrant system, a cistern, or a sprinkler system approved by the fire department. It would also be prudent to explore the possibility of requiring all new homes that are located 1,000 feet or more from a water source be equipped with a sprinkler system for fire suppression. The type of growth and the rate at which it occurs will have a serious effect on the character of Tilton. Therefore, every effort must be made to allow changes to be assimilated into the community's fabric at a controlled rate. C. Capital improvements. In 2007, the Tilton Planning Board adopted the Capital Improvement Program developed by the Capital Improvement Committee with the assistance of the Lakes Region Planning Commission. The maiden effort of this committee was not entirely embraced by the town fathers or citizens at the March 2007 town meeting, but it was adopted and will be refined and hopefully more fully embraced in the coming years. This plan will help the community plan for infrastructure needs in advance, allowing planning, oversight, and the ability to spread costs over a horizon of 6 years. If utilized, this will prevent lump sum expenditures that greatly affect the tax rate from one year to the next. With a capital improvement plan in place, impact fee regulations were voted on at the 2012 town meeting and approved so that developments that weigh heavily on existing town infrastructure can contribute their share to its upkeep and improvements. Traffic safety and flow is an important issue to the citizens of Tilton. To provide the safest, smoothest traffic flow to accommodate both local and seasonal traffic, the town should work with the state to develop a comprehensive transportation plan by working proactively and in cooperation with the state. The town can anticipate the future demands made of our roadways. Transportation enhancement grants should be investigated to fund sidewalks along our roadways to provide safe walkways for pedestrians, thus encouraging foot traffic to local businesses and points of interest throughout town. The town should strive to finish laying sewer lines so that all but the most rural areas are covered by the availability of municipal sewer and require all new residential and commercial development to tie into the town's sewer system. In order to maintain the character of the town and control the rate at which it continues to grow, it is imperative that the planning board be diligent about updating the town's regulations for amendments consistent with the needs of the community. Of top priority was the revision of the sign ordinance, which was needed to help eliminate oversignage and light pollution. The board should continue to require setback standards, easements, and rights of way based on design standards that take into account density, traffic generation, safety, and future infrastructure needs and aesthetics. The town seriously considered the downtown parking issues and worked to create parking regulations. Although these regulations have helped, the town should obtain additional parking whenever the opportunity presents itself. The 1994 master plan encouraged commercial growth in the newly created regional commercial district. The area along Route 3 at the Exit 20 area has blossomed into a variety of retail commercial businesses. The town should now encourage a more professional commercial use in the area, including within the industrial park, by promoting office complex space, office space is in short supply in Tilton and would attract professional services and better paying jobs for our citizens.
I just thought it was very important that we review at least the introduction to the master plan, because I think that so far, those ordinances that we've talked about have fit into that, and any ordinance we do in the future should as well. And I think even if we revise, and when we revise the master plan, which we will, most of those things are still pretty pertinent. We need to protect our natural resources, and we need to protect the safety and the health of our citizens. So I just wanted to start with that. And with that being said, I'm open to hear any suggestions for the ordinances we come up with, or any others that you might want to come up with.
Nate's got his hand raised.
Yes, Nate.
Yes, so first of all, I do not have a functional microphone.
His mic won't turn on.
We can share one if you don't mind.
Well, it'll be easier not.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so with that problem solved, I would like to talk about one of the changes we had decided on previously, as I was reviewing the state RSAs, and I believe our current chart of permitted uses was changed in 2004 to make it legal, because what we define as multifamily is 3+ units, and it's only allowed in one of our districts, and we are required to allow 5+ unit housing to be developed in 51% of the land in districts that are residential. And so if you look at our current chart of permitted uses, there are 6 out of 9 districts that you could consider residential, as they allow some type of residential housing. This is village residential, mixed use, medium residential, rural agricultural, downtown, and resort commercial. So if we were to add the maximum of 4 units to the multifamily line, there would be nowhere in town you could build a 5+ unit building, which would be 51% short of what we're legally required to allow. And looking at the existing zoning map, it's not that we need to put 50% of districts to allow multifamily housing. It's 50% of the space. And if you look at our map, the rural agricultural district, which could be considered residential, considering the fact that allows single family, manufactured, and cluster development and conversion of existing residential structures into multiple dwelling units. So to come into compliance, we can't restrict multifamilies to 4 units. And I would argue that only allowing multifamilies in the current districts, we are not meeting the minimum land percentage requirement. If we were to keep multifamily houses out of the entirety of the rural agricultural districts, that could potentially require us to put it or allow it in the majority of village residential, medium density residential, and resort commercial, given that we can't put housing in regional commercial or general commercial or industrial based on the current zoning. We could potentially expand those areas to allow some type of residential housing. And then I couldn't even find anything on tiny homes. So I'm not sure where we stand there, but I would think our minimum lot requirements would not be in compliance with that. But I wasn't able to find the new RSAs that covered tiny homes. Thank you.
Chairman, let me know if this is right, but I think the 4 was just for without a special permit. They can go above that if they go petition the zoning or whatnot for, yeah, so that we're just doing it. 4 is just restricting for without having to go to zoning. So that's not, they can't build more than, they can do more than 4, but they have to go to get a special permit, right?
Right,
Special
but then,
exception. Yeah, variance, yeah,
but
yeah.
variances do not meet the qualifications. The zoning has to explicitly allow it. So even if you said
Can we have
you
one
can do a
conversation?
variance, then we would still need to increase special exceptions to more districts than they're currently in.
So I'm not sure what you're proposing. Are you proposing that we make changes to our tables?
I am just stating a problem at this point in time. I do not know what the correct solution is. I think we might have to have land use do the numbers on the actual acreage or square footage within the districts. We might need a better state definition of what makes a district residential, given that single families in rural agricultural may not make that residential from a zoning district perspective. But I think it's an issue that we need to address, and our previous decision would only make it more illegal.
I
I
don't,
don't think it's illegal, but.
Nate, I don't understand where you say illegal, because the town can actually enact things that are a little more stringent, or whatever stringency they want for, not, or over what the state requires. State doesn't have jurisdiction on that.
I mean, it says specifically,
In where says it? No, you can just cite it, what
Say
it
it
is
to
from.
the-
Is it
for
from a
everyone to
state
hear.
or from our town?
so this is RSA 674, local land use planning and regulatory powers, section 67459, workforce housing opportunities. In every municipality that exercises the power to adopt land use ordinances and regulations, such ordinances and regulations shall provide reasonable and realistic opportunities for the development of workforce housing, including rental multifamily housing, which is defined as a building or structure containing 5 or more dwelling units. In order to provide such opportunities, lot size and overall density requirements for workforce housing shall be reasonable. A municipality that adopts land use ordinances and regulations shall allow workforce housing to be located in a majority, but not necessarily all, of the land area that is zoned to permit residential uses within the municipality. Such a municipality shall have the discretion to determine what land areas are appropriate to meet this obligation. This obligation may be satisfied by the adoption of inclusionary zoning as defined in RSA 674-21-4A, which I do not have on me. This paragraph shall not be construed to require a municipality to allow for the development of multifamily housing in a majority of its land zoned to permit residential uses. A municipality shall not fulfill the requirements of this section by adopting voluntary inclusionary zoning provisions that rely on inducements that render workforce housing development economically unviable. A municipality's existing housing stock shall be taken into consideration in determining.
Do you know what the colon is? 674 colon what?
59.
5.9.
It's workforce
59.
Right,
housing.
so one of the factors
Okay.
that does weigh in on that is your inventory. And I think Nate did allude to that, as well as your land. You do not have any zone where you allow, as Nate said, multifamily. You have no high density district, which is unusual, but you would have to calculate what you do have in the town for what's considered affordable housing and workforce housing. I don't know, I don't have that number, but that is taken into account.
And we do have workforce housing. I believe Lockmere Meadow is considered workforce housing. I think that's something that we may look into in the future, but as I say, we do have a process.
We can share. if you
We
want.
do have a process of going before the zoning board for a variance. And we also have currently workforce housing in at least one of our districts. John? Okay, so I think, again, that's something we might want to look at in the future, but I don't think that tonight we have the time to do that.
Hmm.
Anything else anybody has for what we've already worked on? Or any suggestions for other things we want to consider? Okay.
What, for new zoning?
Yeah, do you have any other things that John? Eric?
Oh, good.
Nate? Tom? All right, I guess, do we want to consider mixed use? The mixed use district?
Changes to it, you mean?
Mixed use 2?
Well, we have a mixed use too. We just don't have anything in it.
Do
And we
you wanna
haven't assigned
consider
it.
what the
Well,
regulations?
making changes. I believe that there's a petition. Well, I know there's a petition warrant article that covers for creating an overlay district in the RC district. So I'm not sure if the whole mixed use 2 is really on the table as much as I understand it's to remove that and to create the district in the RC district. There are limitations that's created by that. I looked at it. You can't go and build anywhere because it's not sewer everywhere. So it's very limited to where it can actually there is some control on that. At this time, I can't see making any changes to the MU2 because, as the voters would decide if they want just, create that overlay district in the RC zone. So,
Is that
I think
something
it's a
we
lot.
should consider,
What's that?
putting an overlay in?
Well, there's already a warrant article for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a petition one, so there's nothing we need to do. That
Can
would
I-
be for the
Can I
legislative
just ask the
body.
board, at the last meeting, there was one of the other selectmen here suggesting that the previous planning board of 2004 supported the mixed use for the Manville property specifically. So does this board want to consider adding that property in a separate warrant article to this overlay district?
No, I don't.
I personally, at this time, don't see any need to do that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. How does the rest of the board feel? John?
Tom wants to.
I don't see the need.
Right?
So the warrant article for the overlay,
Right now, we're just talking about, do we want to see anything done with the vote that was taken in 2004 for the Manville property? Do we need to overlay that? You see a need for that?
so I feel like mixed use 2 is a district in search of land. And I think there's a lot of changes or some changes that need to be made to our existing districts to be compliant with state RSAs, which I think have the potential to address a lot of issues that the mixed use 2 district was supposed to cover. So if the petition for the overlay were to pass, I would see no reason for us to have mixed use 2 after that point. And potentially, even if it doesn't pass, it may make more sense to allow the voters to decide on potential changes to existing districts where the impacted land is very well defined versus giving them potentialities that may not manifest as to okay, we define mixed use 2, but then what land does or doesn't go into it, and where does that land come from, and how does that affect that existing district? Those are my thoughts.
So I guess I gather from what you said, going through all of that, is that you don't see the need to do an overlay for the Manville Road area at this point in time.
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious, we can't really do an overlay because it hasn't been approved yet. So you can't overlay something that doesn't exist yet.
What was approved?
But you're,
The district was approved.
Right, but it's not
and
an
it was-
overlay.
but it's
And
not
that
an
was
overlay
it.
district.
Not
It's
yet.
just a,
Right, well,
district.
that was a
it's
proposal.
just a bunch
for
of
the
words on a piece of
overlay.
paper at this point.
Okay,
Um,
okay, John, did you have something else to say?
I was just looking, I believe that, well, it's difficult to put it on one individual property, but the overlay creates it that anybody can do that, provided there are certain provisions that are
And it's
currently
taken out.
existing or will be existing in the future. And I believe the Manville area is in the resort commercial anyway. So it is
No.
not,
Industrial
it's right
park.
before, that's in,
No, it's not industrial park.
Yeah, it is.
It's not industrial.
Oh, no, it's not.
No,
That's
it's
right,
not in the
right, that's
resort.
right, sorry.
It's mixed use.
it's in the resort commercial.
No, she said mixed use.
Wait a minute. Where's
Okay, so I was,
I think it's mixed use, John.
I don't know where Manville Road is.
yeah, I could have pulled up a
Well,
better,
here's resort commercial.
Where's,
and here's mixed use. So there, Manville's right here.
Okay.
Right here, the gray one. No,
Okay.
you got me upside down now.
yes, that's,
Isn't this Manville Road right here?
So here we are.
I know it's near the
Oh, but this little
And
piece
this-
here is.
All right, I'm been on this.
that's probably resort.
We're back here. So
There's another map here.
Here you go. This is
Trying to
Manville Road.
Dan's
It's-
going
it's
to
this-
look.
it's this little-
Get the
Yeah.
overlay.
Is it-
I thought they were two halves of a map, but I don't think they are. I
No,
don't
they're
believe
not.
they
I
line
see
up.
that
You
now.
know what?
Is it this outlined yellow? Is that the piece of property on Manville Road?
This is a Manville Road.
That's what I thought. And then,
This is.
This is Manville?
That
Well,
gray area.
was
But,
so
but it
comes
says
in-
industrial. It
You
says
see
industrial
Manville.
park. Oh, you know what?
What about that
I
yellow
think
area?
Yeah, that yellow area. This
That's a
is mis.
road?
It's mis.
It's an area.
That's it.
Where's Manville Road? So, is that it right
But
there?
it's definitely not in
Yeah.
resort commercial. Right?
That's
You know,
how I
it's this
understand
color.
it.
Well, I didn't know if it's this close to the road,
This is off.
it's in that triangle there.
M's.
It's a 3M,
See
right?
this little
Yeah.
down there?
Mm.
Somehow
But the
that
rest of
could
it
be
is-
mixed use. But that plan doesn't show that.
That is commercial,
I have another plan. that
Resort
goes up.
commercial.
even though there's houses.
Yeah, I think she'll pull up the
Yeah.
one.
Okay.
Land's gonna make a big one.
What's this one? Oh, this is the whole
And-
thing, isn't it?
It would be in your zoning regulations
I didn't know that.
book. In the back, there's some maps, map the zones.
But that's mixed use.
Right near the back.
It's residential commercial.
I can't read it today.
I know I had foldouts for it.
Okay.
But at any rate, you know,
I think it's mixed use, but it's.
for trying to add one person, and that's what came up before was with that district. And that's why one part failed and the other one passed, is because they didn't feel it was proper for putting an individual's property and creating a zone for it and doing that. Now, that's what caused its demise.
So what you're saying, if 5 people wanted to go there, we would do it?
Mhm.
Huh?
If 5 different people wanted to go into a mixed use, then we would think about doing it?
You mean mixed use too?
Mhm.
She's saying that, are you saying,
Well,
'Cause
I'm-
it's not
I'm hearing
Manville,
you
but if
say we
5
don't wanna do it for
different-
one person.
you're right, if 5 different individuals wanted to go in there, we would do it.
I'd have to, look at it. I didn't think that, we were discussing Manville Road on ours.
Yeah.
Well, we're
I
not
was looking
really.
at,
You
the
brought it
mixed
up,
use
that's the
and,
only reason.
I mean, would they be required to be,
Okay, you want to
Connect-
see it, John? He's got it right here.
You have the right map?
Just right off the town website.
Yeah, I know, that's why the one we have is not.
Yeah, so along the other side, a couple
this
of those,
is
the
mixed,
smaller
right?
properties are
So
in resort
that's-
commercial, but the big piece is in regional commercial.
Right.
Regional.
And one piece is in medium residential, it's kind of weird.
So it wasn't even mixed use.
I looked at one time and it showed that.
I wonder if we should
Don, Eric has it if you want to see the
do
map.
you get the overlay? Are you looking at this?
So part of it's in this,
Um,
and part of it's in that.
And where's man?
So part of it's in RG and parts in mixed residential, not
Manville
mixed.
Road.
Yellow line
Yeah.
aligned.
Mudzi Tapanek.
That would be considered the mound.
That
Mound.
is, yeah, that's, oh, yeah. So
That's
it's-
the brownfield,
You
that's
know,
fine.
that's the other thing, that other property, if they did put it in, it was on asbestos polluted site.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
I-
It was more than asbestos, I think,
Being the
wasn't it?
11th hour,
John,
making-
isn't it more than asbestos over there?
I don't remember. I know it was
Something about
asbestos and
asbestos.
I thought that there was a lot more than
It has
asbestos.
nothing to do with
Yeah.
zoning, though,
It was creosote in there,
other than that was buried there at some point.
which is still being used.
Hmm?
I think
Dana, I
that,
have a
I was told it
question.
was creosote in there, but creosote,
Creosote and asbestos, I think there's a lot of pollution in that whole area,
now,
which was my concern there.
Yes.
yeah, was it cleaned? Was it cleaned up?
I don't
at this
believe
time,
that
I
it
don't wanna
was,
make
was
that
it, John?
changes.
It was not cleaned up, was it?
I don't have
And-
all
and
the
planning
information
board
right
did not
here.
address
I
the
didn't know
cleanup
it was
at that time.
issue tonight, but
That's why there's a big fence around it.
yeah.
I'm
Right.
sorry, I'm trying to get rid of this.
That was kind of my comment where mixed use 2 was only, from what I gather, only created because this Manville property wanted to be there. There was no mixed use 2 before that.
Correct.
Yes. That's my comment.
That's correct.
And people thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
And that's why it went through.
And then my
Mixed use
only,
too, but they didn't want the one lot assigned to it.
yeah,
So that part failed, but the other part passed because people thought it would be a good idea, but there was nothing else. No other warrant articles that are on the ballot that to put anything else in or to change it or make it an overlay as you've suggested and petition, voters
And
petition.
how many, it only failed by what? 3 votes?
I think both of them
7
was very,
votes.
very close. Both of them were a few votes.
One with one
Yeah.
vote. I
yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what
3
part was
votes
one
and
vote.
7, I think.
It made it very confusing for people and
I think that
They got-
the passage of
Here it is.
mixed use 2 was one vote.
So this one was 1 yes, and this one was a lot more.
Yep.
Not just a small amount. It's
Oh, so they know.
196 no, 164 yes to put the property in there. But for the zone, it was passed by 1 vote.
Okay. All right, so do.
So my other thing was, I guess we were having these additional meetings because are we going to put regulations in this mixed use 2 zone, or are we gonna leave it blank?
Well, I think that's what we have to decide tonight.
It was, yeah, and it wasn't about properties going in there, it was about regulating it.
Yes.
So I guess, can an individual petition to have their property zoning changed? Or could there be a warrant article that would change a select number of properties? Or would the planning board propose an article that would be voted on to change the zone? I'm just
The
curious as to like
ZBA
how they
can allow for
change.
people to do different things in zones that are not allowed.
No, right. But how would someone change the zone they're in?
Right.
An individual, they can
And
go
warrant and-
that. If they want to change a big area, they can do to a warrant article or they, I mean, technically they could do one individual. I'm not sure.
I mean, I
Oh.
would almost argue it might be worth putting something on the ballot as to removing or dissolving mixed use 2, since it's undefined and unpopulated. And then,
Well, we talked about, we could do that.
because then we could potentially, if we were to want a mixed use 2 type district, we could, do the due diligence and have the time to create something net new, and then people would not be confused with, oh, there's this mixed use 2 thing that exists, and so what's this new thing? But just my 2 cents.
They might have that anyway, 'cause this-
Solves the mixed use zone now.
Oh,
My petition dissolves the first one and allows it to meet overlay. Yeah. Trying not to comment anything yet.
Well, can you wait
That's
till
up
we?
to chairman.
Has everybody had a chance to look at the petition warrant article? That one in there.
One thing to keep in mind that if I'm correct, this petition warrant article is voted on at the business portion. Oh, this goes on. This is on the ballot. Okay,
On
just
the
because it
ballot.
says petition warrant article, so I wasn't sure.
It goes on with the regular.
Okay, I was just thinking about confusion that it might generate.
And if there are enough signatures, it will be presented.
There are enough signatures. It's already gone
Yeah.
through the process.
Okay.
So there are enough signatures. They'll go on the ballot and it'll be voted on in the voting portion of your
But it will be
meeting.
discussed at the public hearing.
Nope.
No?
It'll be discussed at your public
That's what I
hearing.
meant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, your public hearing, not your deliberative session.
Yeah.
Correct. And Nate, yeah, so this petition warrant article, which is already going on the ballot now and cannot be rescinded, does just what you said. It does take off the old mixed use district as a district and creates it as an overlay district. So it will go away if this passes.
Eric?
Question. If this does not pass, does mixed use
Changes.
2 go away as well, or
No.
is it just
Nope.
still there with undefined? Okay.
Would
So,
we want to propose something in
No.
case the warrant
I
article
can't
does
hear
not
you,
pass?
sorry.
No. I don't think so, do we? We don't.
I didn't hear the questions.
Do we want to propose something? To take it out, take it away?
Well, to put it in there, I would propose that we take it away and then address it all. If it doesn't go through, or if it does go through, that will all be set, because our C district will have that its own overlay district. And then next year, put something together for the mixed use 2 and where else we would allow that and what it would look like.
That sounds like a plan to me,
So
John.
you want to write an additional?
No, that would be
No.
to
No.
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 remove it and then do it
Next
next year
year.
for all other areas.
So you do want to write an article to remove it in addition to the petition. I'm a little confused with what you're saying.
I think so.
So you want to have 2 on there. My only concern is it would be a little confusing for the voter, but because they're going to see remove it once and then remove it again. But it's up to
Well,
this.
I thought, John, you were saying we'll remove it next year.
No, remove
No,
it this
this
year,
year?
and next year we can work on something proper that lists what it is and what we want to look like and apply it to things and spend a couple months working on it. And we'll also have a feeling for how the voters feel about it and all that. I think it's going to go through.
But
Because it is,
if
even though
removing-
it's a big district, it's very limited because you have to have the infrastructure in order to have that, which is the sewer and
But
water.
isn't that
But people
confusing?
might vote for keeping it in because they think they're voting for the mixed use and the petition. I just think it's going to be a little
I
confusing
do too.
for the
If they
people
have
to
it this
vote
year.
on, I want to get rid of mixed use and I want to vote for the overlay, or I want to keep mixed use and vote no on the overlay. I think it's a confusing issue.
I think
When
so, too.
you people here understand it, and I think it's confusing,
I'm
but
with
that's
John.
just my opinion.
Yeah,
No,
it's get rid of it because
let's get rid
it
of
doesn't have anything to it. And then we can have a clean slate and create it. We'll have, I believe the mixed use overlay will go through. And
I just
then
don't
we
wanna
can work on
confuse
creating it.
voters, and I think
Well,
that
so,
Well, we
so
can't,
on,
we
on
can't
that,
presume because the voters have to vote.
what John is proposing and Christine supporting is that we, as a planning board,
Repeal.
remove the mixed use 2 overlay that exists now.
No, not the
No,
overlay.
there's
just
no
the
overlay.
District.
The
Mixed
district.
use 2
Just the
district.
unassigned name.
Nate had mentioned it also. And then,
so I had mentioned it when I was not aware that the warrant article passing would remove it because
oh, okay.
it's essentially transitioning it from a district to a district
Mm.
overlay district. So I think it would be confusing, and if the warrant article passes as John said he thought it would, then the ground is clear for us to do things without having mixed use 2 being a district at that point.
I think people are going to vote.
I think it's confusing.
There's nothing
I don't
assigned
know
to it. There's
what
no
the voters would-
description for it.
needs
It
to be
doesn't even
done.
belong
Yeah.
in there. It's no thing. And very specifically, the
If it doesn't
overlay
pass, it's still
has all
there.
that.
Right. So the
And-
overlay, if the overlay passes, the mixed use
They'll get
2
rid of it.
district goes away. That's part of
Only
the
if it
overlay.
passes,
Only if
Yeah.
it passes.
Right. Right.
Only.
And if not, and we have the mixed use 2, we're in the same boat we're in now with,
But there's nothing in
here's
it,
something
so
with
why does it
nothing
matter?
in it. And it just has that more confusion of why'd you have a mixed use 2? It should it have been here, should have been there. We can go and work on it thoughtfully over the next year and assign it to districts and what it would look like. Because we don't have time to do it.
My
And
two
it's
cents,
too vague.
for what it's worth, is that Most voters don't know mixed use two exists now. They voted for in 2004. They don't know what they had for breakfast yesterday in many cases. And that's not, I mean, that's me too. It's not just, but I think most voters feel that way. And I think it will complicate and confuse people to have two what appear to be similar warrant articles at the same time. That's my opinion.
But if the
And,
voters
and
don't,
it doesn't matter whether there's anything in it now or not. It's cleaning up, and next year we can clean it up when there's no room for confusion of the voters on what's being proposed. I think it's very
Can
confusing.
do
for
both.
most
yeah,
voters.
the only thing is when you were saying the voters don't know what mixed use two is, it is now in the warrant article. Are they gonna say, well, what is this?
Well,
So
it's
if we're
it's
not
defined
clear,
in the warrant
either
article
way,
now.
It's defined
yeah.
in the warrant article.
Oh,
Okay?
yes, I saw that, yes.
So that's why I'm just thinking, just look at two, it's gonna confuse them, and
They might ask,
they'll
you
vote
know, what else
yes
is
for
in there?
both and or no for both because they're confused as to what it is.
Well, the other part of it is that one article says to eliminate it, and the other one says to keep it.
One says
We-
to change it, the other says to eliminate
Eli-
it.
No, it says eliminate, and then he's creating a
A
new,
new one.
One
whole
said-
new thing,
yeah.
so it's a whole, yeah.
So if you have it to eliminate it, they're very, it is nothing. It's only a description with nothing that it describes. There's no land it describes. There's nothing at all. It was kind of like a leftover piece of legislation
Handbill.
that kind of was disorganized to begin with. And it
Chairwoman,
never
should
should have
we
been there.
put it to a vote as
I'm
to
going
whether?
to in just a
Okay.
minute, but I want to hear other comments. Any other comments on this? I'll make a motion. Let me see if I can phrase this properly. To have a warrant article removing mixed use two as it exists now from the zoning. Is there a second?
Aye.
To remove,
To remove mixed use two from zoning as it is right now.
second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
It,
Harry?
so just a discussion, after the public hearing, we could withdraw that warrant article as a planning board. So we could get some public input on it at that time and then decide how to go forward.
Then you want to leave it the way it is?
No,
So you want me
I'm
to
saying
remove-
we could,
Produce it, let them see that.
Okay,
and then see what people say, see if they are
Okay.
confused or if they don't understand. And then after that, our public hearing, we can decide.
okay.
Can that happen? Can we
Yeah.
create a warrant article and then vote to take it off?
Planning board can,
Yeah,
petition we can.
After the public.
No,
hearing.
no, I understand. This is
That's
stone.
separate.
Now it's printed on stone, on paper. It is like stone.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of removing it, please signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Nay.
2 nays?
No, there was
No, it's 3-3.
three.
3-3. It failed.
It was a tie.
And if it's a tie, it fails. Okay.
No, we'll have to,
Did you say, John?
yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We still have opportunities. When's the public hearing?
No, I mean, the public hearing is the 11th. Yeah,
February or January?
January 11th.
Thank you.
January 11th is the posting, and you have to.
Sorry.
You have another meeting though before that. If
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can think about it and
Yeah.
see what we want to do.
And we can
We're on the
vote
fence.
again.
What's our
At
next
least the
meeting?
posting would get them to think about it.
Ninth, second, yeah.
So you have a meeting on the 9th before that
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah.
The 11th isn't the public hearing, the 11th is the requirement.
Is it what?
11th is posting.
Last day of posting.
Okay. All right. What else do we want?
No, I think that's,
Anything else?
only, I have one comment that we have to start early next year. We have to,
We said that last year.
in,
We say it every year.
Yeah.
Start
We
in
say that
May.
every
We'll
single
start in
year.
May
yeah,
after,
well,
or no,
we're going
March,
to
April.
next,
But we almost have a
And
full board
I
now.
really would like people to go to read the master plan.
yeah.
I
And
mean, I've read it a dozen times, but I read it again this afternoon and I saw things I didn't see before.
I was on one of the committees, so
Yeah, me too.
quite aware.
We
Were you there with Kathy Mitchell and all them?
Well, I
It
was
was like
one.
20 people that
Oh,
were.
you were the
We
original one.
did it before, and then we gave it to the Conservation Commission, and they wrote the conservation portion.
Yeah.
Which I think was a
I
very.
think every department,
Everyone
we
should
should
do
get
this.
it out there that we, next year, we want to work on. Because there's certain things that
Even
are
a
in there that-
section.
It'll be
Like
11
that-
years old next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
Somebody-
like technology that doesn't exist and stuff in there.
And I think if you read it again, and I felt this way this afternoon, because I've heard people say, well, let's get Lakes Region Planning. I think it's something very personal to the town. That's my own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're the ones who should weigh in on it.
Yeah.
I think we have a really good framework in the one that we have now. There are things that have to be revised and changed. And maybe the vision is a little different. I was surprised and had forgotten about this, that cluster housing is in this. I forgot that we had done that when we did it, because it was just a dream in somebody's eye. We really hadn't had anybody come forward and say we want to do cluster housing. And sure enough, we had that, and it was in the master plan, so we could look at it.
Now we have accessory dwellings.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, it's just-
And a lot of different things. Is there anything else? The only thing are we doing anything with Airbuds?
Airbnbs.
Airbnb,
Oh,
Airbuds.
I'm like earbuds.
No
Uh,
2 days of no sleep.
No,
I
that's going to
know.
be a pretty big undertaking as well. And I thought at the last meeting, I asked this board if they were going to address mixed use, that the tiny houses and the short-term rentals was not going to be looked at this year. And everyone said that's
I
correct.
really think it's got to be looked at next year for sure.
Yeah. All the ones we passed up, we should start early
Yeah.
on, you know. Yeah.
Would it be possible to like organize as far as like the master plan, like an early January, like multiple committee meeting, or like how
Best
has
after
that been
March,
formed in the
after
past?
After
you have-
March, after our
yeah.
town meeting.
Oh, right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And master plans should be a full town undertaking, not really written. Master plan is not written by the planning board, although the planning board kind of leads that, but it should be something that's done with the whole town, not 4 people's visions or 5. It should be a much wider span.
Yeah, separate committees is what they did before.
Usually you can do charrettes, you can do surveys. There's a lot of
Yeah.
ways to.
I was going to say, one of the things I know that Northfield just did there is they sent out questionnaires, and we have to decide how we're going to approach it.
And to get
sometimes it
responses.
takes 2 years.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there. A lot has changed.
And I think that's why
Transportation,
people don't update it,
the transportation
Yeah.
piece and
Yep.
energy, and a lot of things have changed in this.
Also mentions CIP and impact fees, which do not exist, which is interesting.
And that's something we paid the Lakes Region Planning Commission to help us with that. And basically they came up and said it doesn't really apply to Tilton. Well,
There's legalities behind it.
for a lot of reasons. Okay, we have it really doesn't. If we had a big development going in, that was one of the things they talked about. If we had a huge parcel of land with multi residences going in, and we could tax the roads and so on, it might be something we should look at. But they came back and told us that we should not have one.
Yeah, well, impact fees can be applied to residential units. It's applied across the board for all kinds. I do think that maybe because you have a separate fire, Northfield Tilton Fire, that is not included in your town, where a lot of those impact fees usually go to your fire department and fire
A
trucks,
separate school district.
and most of your roads are also state roads, so you're not probably getting impact fees for roads, but you could get impact fees for schools, even though you're a regional school. But
We're a regional school too. A district, school's a district also, so that's why they said that really wouldn't pay.
I think the last one actually took a couple years after.
Yeah. All right, anybody have anything else before I let Mr. Bernard have his brief say? Tom, you have anything?
No.
Nate?
I'm good.
I think the only thing is it's meant, this is as a planning board meeting to work on amendments to the zoning in our amendments. But
Christine, anything else?
Hmm?
You have anything?
Nope.
John? Briefly?
Right. So the only thing I was hoping that this meeting might work, and if this does pass, and I see there's three that are uncomfortable with it, you could propose an amendment to go along with this as supplementary. So if there's other things that you would like to change in what I propose, that if that gets approved, you accept it, you say, okay, but we would like this one to get approved too, because there's something in it that you don't like, that you would like some change, and that's what I was hoping that you would do. So if there's any type of, you're not really in favor of this, I get that. If there's something that is really bothering you about it, you propose that as an amendment.
Thank you, John.
I don't, you said it's three that are opposed to it, but I don't think that there's three opposed to it.
Okay.
You might be feeling that, but
We're just following the regulations is
Yeah.
what we're trying to do, yeah.
And we'll have a public hearing. We don't know how, no matter how many signatures you have, there may be people who signed it like I did, so you could get it on the ballot and for no other reason. So that's,
Appreciate that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So on that note, I think it might be worth us all reviewing the warrant article text to see if we do want to make adjustments to any of the specifics, such as, frontage or, structure height or anything like
Can't
that.
change this warrant article
No, but
as it's written.
we can put forward a warrant article for making changes to the mixed use 2 overlay district in the event that it exists.
Can
And
we
we could have
produce
that-
something so a if happens?
put it after the petition warrant article and say, if 3 passes, are you in favor of additional restrictions or whatever you decide? I don't know what you would want to change, but you can put an if warrant article.
So we could potentially do, A, B, C, and allow like more granular decision making by the voters. So instead of saying we want to make all of these changes on a single vote, we could say we want to make these 2 changes and these 3 changes. And so people who might only be for some of them versus all of them would be able to.
That might be getting
vote.
a little bit for a warrant article. You try and keep
Yeah.
it as simple as you can when it's going on a ballot. It's not
Buffet.
town meeting. Yeah, to pick and choose what you like is not really the.
Well, I guess we could potentially have 2 warrant articles that would be amendments, but I'm just
they could be
spitballing. I'm sure we could all do it in a single one.
so they don't contradict each other in a way that's not allowed.
and our objective is not to confuse the voters. We've had situations where we've done that. People don't have 3 hours to sit and get an explanation. They want to go in and vote.
And no one can go in there and explain it while they're
No.
voting.
Well, one year we had the land use coordinator
Out there to
there
answer
to
questions.
questions.
Yeah.
Pretty much yes or no.
Yeah.
Or
But I think once you have your ballot, it's not like you
Correct.
can walk out with your
you
ballot.
cannot. It's before you go in to vote.
You have to know what's on the ballot before you.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the problems, that a lot of times people don't read them before
That's
they
gonna
go in
lot.
to vote.
We gotta vote 4 times next year.
They're sent out, right?
An example, though, is, if you read this petition warrant article, it is designed to be allowed by conditional use permit. And if you remember, like on your conditional use permit for groundwater protection or some of the other conditional use permits you have, there's a list or a chart of what they have to do to meet those conditions for that permit. So you might want to think about if you want to put something together that actually, because this still has to come to the planning board. And so then the planning board would have, a template to say, okay, this is what you want to do. You need a conditional use permit. You must, best management practices, or provide, I don't know, whatever those restrictions beyond these are basic restrictions that we find really in a dimensional table, not what you usually find in a conditional use permit. So you would be left with just this, kind of like, I hate to bring it up again, but the excavation permit that just says special permit. I'd like to beat a dead horse sometimes. But that would be one suggestion if you were looking to make a second amendment, and it could be, if Article 4 passes, would you be in favor of these restrictions for conditional use permit?
Just for clarification, can all changes to conditional use permits need to be voted on, and they can't by the town? Permits can't be changed by the planning board or any other boards?
Again, it depends on how you write it. If you want to make the conditions that they must meet broad, like a best management practice is somewhat broad, or that they need to supply, a phased, or they need to supply full plans, or they need to provide, those aren't things like that are black and white, they're more generic. You would have to draft, but what they vote on is final. You can't, right now you don't really have anything. So I guess, or you could leave it that you just make it up, because the conditional use permit, you don't have any criteria. So,
Thank you.
Is there anything else to come before us tonight, our workshop? Tom?
Oh.
Nate? No? Can I?
Nate did bring up that 4 dwelling unit. I just need to know, we're going to go forward with the public hearing to a maximum of 4 dwelling on the conversion in the village district. So make sure we didn't change that, so I don't come back with that proposal, because I've got to put everything in the paper on the 11th. So we can bring it back up on the 9th if you want.
Can the Lakes Regional Planning Council help us with determining like compliance? Okay.
We can ask our attorney, or we can try and get some legal advice from New Hampshire Municipal Association regarding that.
I think it would be wise to take both those options with our current chart of permitted uses, just out of liability, given that we do have one more additional session. If there are any changes we do need to make and promote.
I think if that's something that the board wants to pursue a legal opinion on that, then the planning board chair should direct me to request permission from the selectmen to access our legal, because I think it'd be a little too in-depth for New Hampshire Municipal Association. They're going to give you a brief 1 sentence, 2 sentence, yeah, no, you're compliant or not compliant, but they're not going to get into too much. I could start with that. That's free. But if we're going to spend any money of the towns on legal, that would have to come from the chair and then permission from the selectmen.
I like free. Free's always good.
I would like you to check with municipal association, and if how do the rest of the planning board feel? I don't want to spend money for something that's covered in an RSA and that we can change at some point in time.
I'm not for making 11th hour changes myself. I think look forward to
But
next
we can
year or something
pursue it
like that.
and-
But
Yeah,
and I hear you, Nate, on a lot of that, but I don't think that this is something that we can do in one night.
I don't either.
And looking at, and all these articles were previously reviewed when they were made, and that chart of uses was all previously reviewed. And I don't want to make a hasty change that creates something like our mixed use two with no description like we've got now. I don't want, in RSAs, and that whole paragraph that you read starts out reasonable. Everything is reasonable. All those things, if they're reasonable. So it's such a gray area that we need to have something that we're going to apply to it and have that looked at. Not,
And I agree with John.
I just,
Leanne, just check
Define
that
reasonable.
for free. Okay,
that's an unreasonable question, Eric.
did you hear that? Leanne's gonna check with municipal and if, we can discuss at some later date. I'm not for doing any more that's gonna confuse anybody. I think we've got enough on the plate to have a reasonable vote. Anybody else have anything? Not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Can't wait till May.
Happy New Year.
April.
See you next year.
Merry Christmas.
See you next year.
No,
I've
no.
been seeing
Oh,
before
yeah.
that.